and welcome to Feels Like Magic, the podcast where you will get the grounded self-development wisdom you might need to feel amazing about the person you authentically are. I'm Jo, a transformational coach, speaker, and author, and for decades I was so stuck in self-criticism that I never thought I would feel good about being me. Now I inhabit a new reality, one where I care way less about what other people think. I'm willing to show up as the person that I am, and I deepen into self-love and acceptance every single day. Honestly, it feels like magic. Each week, I'll share scientifically proven tools, things I've learned from the world's best coaches, and personal stories I know you'll relate to. Ready? Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful soul. Happy 2025. I hope that the beginning of this year has brought you spaciousness, peace, ease, fulfillment, and I hope that you're feeling good. And I want you to know that if you're not, that's absolutely okay. So the first days of this year have been very interesting for me personally, and they've brought me real opportunities to stand up for myself, real opportunities to claim what I desire, real opportunity to come back to myself when everything else feels uncertain and a little frightening, and really anchor in. And I will talk about some of this soon. But I want you to know that wherever you're at is absolutely okay. It really, really is. And even if it feels like you're in the darkest hole and you are in the deepest, darkest part of life, or you're starting the year again and you're like, I am still in the same cycle. Like, I hate my job. I am burning out. I can't put down boundaries. I am having such a difficult time with my family. You know, whatever the thing is, I just want you to know that there's hope. And today I'm going to talk about something really, really important, which is stopping punishing yourself. And it's really on my mind because January, when I had my gorgeous eating disorder for many, many years, and then disordered eating for many years, it was always the month where punishment came in the hardest. And just to clear up any perceptions that people may have around eating disorders, my body and food journey really had nothing to do with food. And I know that's really hard to understand, but it had everything to do with not feeling good enough, not feeling like I fitted in, feeling. And now I believe that being different is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But when you are young and you're trying to fit in, and the whole world, every magazine, every TV show, I mean, the 90s culture of dieting and size zero and everything that came around that time is, looking back, one of the most toxic things I have ever seen. And when you exist in that culture and you think, oh, the one thing that I can fix is my body, then I'm going to do that. And the other thing that I will touch on that people, I don't even think I understood until I was very deep into this journey, is that bulimia, which is the form of eating disorder that I specifically had, is a form of self-harm. It really is. It's so visceral, and it's such a punishing thing. So we're going to begin with this, and then I'm going to talk more generally about punishment. You do not have to change your body. And one thing that I learned so deeply is that when I got to my lowest weight, when I went to Thailand when I was 30 and hardly ate. And when I did eat, it was like beautiful, fresh food that didn't really make me put on weight. And I got to like this super low weight, and I came home and I have never been more miserable. Like, because the thing that I thought would bring me, like the goal, the whole, like all of my 20s, underneath everything happening in my life, was this: if I can just be thinner, If I could just be thinner. And like that would dominate my thinking. It would dominate my days. It would dominate what I did. And then I made that happen and I still felt empty. And that became a point of real change for me. Because then, if it's not the food and it's not the body, what is it? Then we have to look at the deeper stuff. Ooh, I didn't know I was going to talk about it. But I sat down this morning and I thought, right, let's just open this up and see what comes through and see what people might need to hear, see what I want to share. So it is unscripted, my friend. So that is a piece of what I will talk about. But more generally today, I'm going to talk about self-punishment, the ways in which we punish ourselves for things that we have done, things that have happened, and things that haven't happened. So we may punish ourselves for not having the life that we thought we would have, when actually what we need is love and compassion. Why do we do this? Why do we punish ourselves? Why do we beat ourselves up instead of going to compassion? So this is a really big topic. Before we get into the juice of today fully, kind of already started, I wanted to let you know that I am running a workshop on Saturday, the 11th of January. It is a transformative New Year process. It is not about writing a goal list down. It is not about making a vision board that you stick in a drawer and you never look at again. It is about getting crystal clear about what you want from this year and how you, my love, can have a powerful hand in creating it. So you will leave after 2.5 hours feeling so lit up and so inspired and so ready, even if right now you feel lost, you can feel confused, you feel overwhelmed, and you feel a little bit like you don't even really have space for it. Honestly, we could do this process at any time. I'm just using New Year because New Year is here. But this is a reset for your life. And I'm so excited to hold the container and to offer you something that is really incredibly special. So if you want to know more about that, go to joannebell.org/makingmagic. And I would love to see you there or on the replay. So as you probably are aware of from your own life, there are many different reasons in which why we continue to punish ourselves. But the framework that I want to give you is the internal family systems framework. So this is a methodology, a strategy that I use a lot with clients. It was created by Richard Schwartz. It's a psychological concept. And I think that you'll find it so relatable. When I first learned about it, I was like, yes, this is how I feel. So you may have found yourself saying, a part of me wants to do this, a part of me doesn't. Quite often we can have the experience of a part of me wants to complete this project, but this other part doesn't. And this other part is keeping me stuck in procrastination, or it's keeping me stuck in self-sabotage. I definitely had that experience when I was writing. There would be this really pure and beautiful part of me that wanted to write and just was so connected to that. And then what ruined it to some degree is the punishing part that would come in and say, that's not good enough. No one's going to want to read this. No one's going to want to hear it. And what that really is about is being seen. At a very fundamental level, when you write something, you put it out into the world, some people are going to hear you, people are going to see you. And for some of us, and for me, that did not feel safe. So we develop different parts. Inner child is a part, but what I would say about this is there are multiple parts which are really inner children. And the way to kind of understand this is that parts develop when we have experiences that are shocking or traumatic or make us believe something about ourselves. And just to put that in context a little, yes, we can have big T trauma, the things that we think of as big T trauma, but we also have small experiences that lead us, little T trauma, that are traumatic for us. So when we're children and we're so pure and we go out into the world and then somebody says, you're fat, you're stupid, you're not good enough, whatever the thing is, that can be really traumatic because there's two definitions of trauma. One is too much, too quick, too soon. And you can imagine if we're a little kid, when they're suddenly told they're not okay, that's too much, too quick, too soon. And the other one is too little for too long. I'm not going to go into that as much here, but I think it's helpful to know them both. So these parts of us develop based on life experience, and we all have parts. We all have different parts. And quite often, our parts are our inner children, and they are protected by parts that punish us. So we have protector parts, manager parts that want to keep us stuck in cycles so that we don't get to the difficult stuff, so that we don't have to feel the things that are really, really difficult to feel. And it's really amazing. And we're so complex, that we're so, as human beings, there's so many layers to us. And the way that we work with parts in coaching is that we help the protector, the punisher parts, to understand that we can be safe without the punishment. So that is what I want to talk about today. We won't be doing parts work, but I do want to give you that framework to just help you to dig into it a little for yourself and just think about, okay, so maybe what are the things that I learned? What might if you've done inner child work before, the beautiful thing about inner child work for me is once you've done it and you have a context, and this is what my clients experience, you can then take it on and you can kind of go deeper into it yourself. So you can start to just kind of explore this idea. If you're like, I don't really get that, Joe, I don't really know how I'm going to use that, just scrap all of this. Just understand different parts of you. Parts of you are here to punish you so that you don't feel deeper things. And let's talk about how that punishment plays out. So one of the things that I have personally experienced and I've worked with clients a lot on is punishment around anger. So when I was a kid, I was told that I had a temper, and that was not a good thing. And so I was punished for my anger. Now, as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I understand if a child was kicking off and, always angry and all of these things, that you would find a way to deal with it. But that doesn't help my inner child. And this brings me to a point which I think is important for us all to just keep on remembering with inner child. It is not about blaming your parents. It is about honoring your experience and just being honest about what happened. And so what happened is I learned to hide my anger. I was still angry, but I learned to keep it in my body, and I learned to punish myself for not feeling good. I learned to punish myself for not being happy all the time. And this showed up for me all through my adult life. All through my adult life, I was always punishing myself for not being happy. I remember when I was working in PR and I really was so unhappy. And I decided to leave. And my sister and I shared a flat at the time. This was, oh gosh, a long time ago, in my mid-20s. And I really felt like I had the dream job. I had the dream thing, right? And I decided that I didn't want it anymore. I wanted to become a teacher, and that's what I did next. I wanted to become a teacher. I wasn't enjoying it, but I couldn't not punish myself. Because in my head, I was like, but you have the thing, Joe. You have the thing that you were supposed to have. Now you've got it. Everyone wants your job. You work for one of the best consultancies in the country. You do the incredible work. They give you all the arts work. They give you the stuff, right? So interesting. And go right back into this mindset of they give you this and you should be grateful. And I just punished myself so much for it not being enough, because I was always looking for something outside of myself to be enough. And so a lesson that I would love to give you that is so, so important is nothing heals in judgment. And I need to be reminded of this all the time. Nothing heals in judgment. And all I was doing was judging myself and punishing myself, because a part of me, underneath that felt incredibly unsafe. Because if this isn't the thing, then I'm going to have to start looking at the deeper stuff. And that is where true healing happens. When we can move out of judgment and we can move into curiosity. In my life, that's not where the healing journey started. It was many years later. But I remember that feeling of feeling like, wow, I did it all. I did it all. And still, I don't feel good enough. And then that came up again in my mid-30s when suddenly I was single again and I didn't love my job. And I was like, I don't have the things that people said that I should have. Now I'm going to actually, at that point, I don't think I did punish myself. That's evolution. That's self-development. So that is an interesting point for me to reflect on, right? But it was a difficult time. It was a really, really difficult time. So I really want you to think about, where are the areas of your life, work, home, family, past experiences, where you are still punishing yourself. You're still punishing yourself. And a really interesting question is to ask yourself, if I stop punishing myself about this, what would I make that mean about me? What would I make that mean about me? So, for example, maybe you would make it mean that you were free. If I'm free, what does that mean? At the core of everything is identity. At the core of everything is, am I going to be rejected by the people that love me? Will they still love me when I'm not punishing myself over this thing? And I'm going to touch briefly here on guilt, because guilt and punishment are so interlinked. And there are two types of guilt. So guilt exists so that we can adjust our actions and make change. So for example, say that you hurt someone and you feel guilty about it. The guilt is there so that you can go in and make amends with that person, so that you can own your actions, so that you can go and you can make a change. Okay, so that is actually productive guilt. Guilt is, I did something bad. Shame is, I am bad. So there's that distinction as well. Punishment can be very related to shame, this feeling of I am bad inside. So first kind of guilt is the productive guilt, where you're actually going to do something and make amends. The second kind of guilt is the guilt that we find ourselves in very, very often, which is punishing and unproductive guilt. So punishing and unproductive guilt is where we have an identity of being a good person, but we've done something that's caused someone else harm, or we've done something that's caused someone else pain, or we've done something that caused somebody else to be annoyed with us. And so what we say is, I should feel guilty. And we keep ourselves trapped in this cycle of suffering. We keep ourselves trapped in this cycle of punishment. Because if I'm a good person, then I am going to feel bad about this, right? And I remember an example of a couple of years ago, we had this gathering of friends, and one of the someone in the circle felt that she hadn't been invited, even though she hadn't responded to several invitations. And a lot of my friends said, I feel so guilty. I feel so bad. And I said, I do not feel bad. This is not my responsibility. And that was such a freeing moment for me to really realize that I wasn't taking myself down that road of punishing and unproductive guilt. And I also wasn't getting on the bandwagon of it. So all those women out there who go, I should feel bad, I feel bad. Such an interesting thing. I really want you to deepen into this idea of, okay, the idea of punishing an unproductive guilt, because it's stopping you from living your life and it's stopping you from being a good person. And again, we have judgment. So if we have judgment, then we are going to stay stuck. Now, our protector parts, the parts that are keeping us from doing this deep the healing, transformative work from becoming our best selves, because on some level, psychologically, that does not feel safe. Our protector parts are going to be quite happy with that, and they're going to keep us there. So one of the biggest things that I want you to think about, one big exit out of punishment, out of self-punishment, is to take away binary thinking. So we talk a lot, and I pick clients up on this all the time, and myself. This was really transformative for me. You talk a lot about right and wrong and good and bad. Now, if we take those concepts away, if there is no right and there is no wrong, if there is no good and there is no bad, then we can stop punishing ourselves. If there only is, what happens? And this is something that you can take away and really start using in your life. Notice where you're saying, I didn't do this right, or I did this wrong. Notice where you're using good and bad. Oh, it was bad that I did this. What if you took them away? And just experiment with that, because we can intervene in a world that we cannot see. And when we start to see all of the ways in which we are punishing ourselves with this good, bad, right, and wrong rhetoric, then we can start to make different choices. And that's what I want for you, my love. I want you to start to make different choices. I want you to choose yourself. Choose yourself. Choose, I'm a human being. Life is messy and beautiful and all the things. I don't have to punish myself. That is not my go-to strategy anymore. I actually get to be compassionate to myself, because I know that is where healing exists. That's where my best life exists, if I can be compassionate to myself. So exits out of self-punishment. Number one, question good, bad, right, or wrong. Number two, remember that nothing heals in judgment, and give yourself compassion. Really, really give yourself compassion for where you're at, for anything that's happened. And remember that you are a beautiful human being, and that it's okay to not do things perfectly. And perfect is a myth also. And number three, I want you to remember that at a level that you may not understand or may not always be aware of, remembering that 96% of our behavior is subconscious. It happens below the surface of consciousness. At a level that you may not be fully aware of, you are punishing yourself because it doesn't feel safe not to. And that is something that you get to sit with and you get to work with by just getting curious. Just inviting in a little curiosity. Okay, if I stopped punishing myself about this thing, what happens? So for example, if you're not in a space that you want to be in, so say that for an example, you have gone back to a job that you know burnt you out before. This is what happened to me as a teacher. And you've gone back into a cycle. So you said that you wouldn't overwork, but you've started to do it again, right? Because we get in our cycles and we get in our patterns until we truly heal what is underneath them. And now you're noticing that and you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this again. And you start going into self-punishment. And you start to just really judge yourself. What I want you to do is to just take a step back and to think about, okay, I see myself doing this. Great. That's awareness. I have awareness. Now, what am I going to do with that awareness? Okay, I'm going to make a different choice. I am going to tomorrow go in. This is kind of how coaching works. We take it day by day. I'm going to go in tomorrow and I'm going to talk to my supervisor and I'm going to say, this is what I can do this week. And I know these things also need to be done, but I'm letting you know right now that I don't have the capacity for them in the next 7 days. See how clear that is? And it's taking ownership and it's moving forward. So when we come out of judgment, when we come out of punishment, we get to move forward. And this goes back to one of the most beautiful quotes that I talk a lot about in things that I teach, by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. So if we can align with our power, that becomes a terrifying place for a lot of us. And what we don't talk about so much in our culture is the fear of success. And again, this comes back to identity. If I'm successful, I'll take me for example, if I grow my business to 6 figures, if I grow my business to 7 figures, if I grow my business so that I'm on television or whatever, the different platforms, and I have a book and I'm really out there and seen, what it comes down to is, will people still love me? Will the people that I love still love me? Right? And so that can feel so terrifying. And then our nervous system, our somatic body shuts it down because it doesn't feel safe. So there's so many beautiful layers to this. And there are ways that you can start working with it right freaking now. And I do quickly want to touch on the nervous system piece, because when you know your nervous system response, your conditioned nervous system response, so mine is freeze, and then I go to appease. It's the first thing that my nervous system does is freeze, and then I go to appease. The other ones are fight and flight. When you know your conditioned nervous system response, and again, there's ways that we can explore that. If you're not sure which one yours is, essentially a conditioned nervous system response is what happens to your nervous system under stress. Do you go into fight? Do you go into flight? Do you go into freeze? And then there's a fourth one, which is appease, and also known as fawn. But when you know what yours is, it can also really normalize and take the punishment out of a situation, because you can just be like, oh, okay, I get it. I was in fight. This is a biological response to something happening around me. And we get to be so curious about that. And curiosity is really the antidote. It's the opposite of judgment, if we can just be curious with ourselves. And so, in summary, my love, if you are in a cycle where you are punishing yourself, first of all, really ask yourself why. What have you done that is so wrong that it deserves constant punishment? And remember that we always have choice. And so this goes back to an episode that I did a long time ago on owning your choices. And what I would love you to do is to start to be clear. I'm choosing to punish myself about X, Y, and Z. Now, when we do that, it can become a much more uncomfortable place, because, of course, we don't want to choose that. But owning the fact that we are choosing it puts us in the position of having agency and power. And then you get to truly look at yourself and decide. You get to decide, is this what I'm really going to carry? Second thing, remember, nothing heals in judgment. So to truly let yourself heal. And I remember, it's interesting actually, when I first started this whole journey, I was like, I don't think I need healing. I mean, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, I've done a couple of things, and I haven't felt great for a lot of my life, but I mean, healing isn't really a thing, because I didn't identify with it, because I hadn't had a big T trauma in my head. So I was like, no, that's kind of for people who have this kind of life experience, and I'm over here. And oh my goodness, it's so interesting, because when I started to unravel things, I was like, whoa, there's so much here, and my life is so much richer for it. And now I get to do this work, So anyway, that is an aside. But remember that nothing heals in judgment, and you get to choose. You get to choose if you're going to continue this cycle of self-punishment once you know it's there, right? And then the next thing that I want you to play around with is no right, no wrong, no good, no bad. We take away those binaries, what remains? And can you be with that without going into punishment? Final thing that I want to touch on is that all parts of you need love. All parts of you need compassion. The reason that you're punishing yourself is because there's something inside that is frightened, that is scared, that doesn't know what will happen if it's seen. So your job is to give yourself love and compassion right where you are, no matter what you've done, no matter where you are. All parts of you deserve that. I am sending you so much love. And if this has hit a chord with you, if there is something here for you, if this might even just be the tip of the iceberg of the thing that you want to shift this year, then my love, if you resonate with me, get in touch and let's chat and really make 2025 the year that you start breaking this cycle. And then what could open up? Because here's the thing, we can be outwardly to the world successful. We can have all of this stuff. But what I'm about is making your internal world feel as good as that looks. Because if we have all the stuff, but we feel empty, we feel disconnected, we feel like we're not good enough, we feel like we're not deserving, then none of it lands. None of it lands. So it's the inner world that really is the experience of life, no matter what is happening outside of you. And when you can cultivate that, you also get to cultivate, potentially for the first time ever, a sense of peace and security and safety. I'm like, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And that, my friend, is priceless. All right. I hope you have a beautiful week. I'll be back soon. I would love to know what landed from this episode. My DMs are always open. I will see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for being here and being you. If you're ready to dive deeper on your self-development journey, visit joannebell.org, where you can sign up to get even more magic, access incredible bonuses, and find out more about working with me.